Hey, Luke 15, verse 1 says this: Jesus became increasingly popular among notorious sinners, tax collectors, and other social outcasts. This is really bugging the Pharisees. I love this. This is really bugging the Pharisees. So they are accusing Jesus of just hanging out with all the wrong people. What do you think you're doing? You're hanging out with social outcasts. You're hanging out with misfits. You're hanging out with freaks. And Jesus doesn't defend himself. He doesn't deny it. He just tells them some stories. He tells them 3 stories about valuable things that are lost and then found: a coin, a sheep, and a son. And he tells them these stories, and then he talks about the joy of finding something that's incredibly valuable to you. And he talks about the joy of people who are lost coming home. And in verse 10 he says this: there is joy in the presence of all God's messengers over even one sinner who changes his way of life. In other words, there's a party in heaven every time somebody comes home, every time somebody comes to their senses and realizes, I can't live without God, I need to go home, I need to reunite with my Father. Every time that happens, there's a party in heaven. The angels throw down. Okay, and we've got the story of the prodigal sons, and I think it's a prodigal sons. I don't think there's just one, because you got the younger brother who runs off and goes to town and takes half of his or part of his dad's money and spends it all on women and whiskey and just goes nuts and just parties and just goes crazy. And then you've got the older brother who's at home, who doesn't seem to do anything wrong, but his heart isn't where it's supposed to be. And finally, the younger brother comes to his senses, and he's looking around, and he's like, I had it much better at home. I had it. I need to go home. I need to reunite. And I'll even be a servant. I'll even just serve my father. And he goes, and he finds that his father has been relentlessly looking for him and searching for him, and runs to him and throws his arms around him and welcomes him home. And they start a big party, and that's when the older brother comes in and gets this attitude, and the older brother is upset, and he's like, this isn't fair, I've been here all along, you never ever threw a party for me, Marcia, it's just not fair. And so we need to find ourselves in the story. That's the whole point. Here's this incredible story of something that is lost, of someone who's lost, who comes home. And we need to find ourselves in the story. Everybody is priceless to God. Everybody. Now, until we come home, God is the Father, and He is relentlessly searching for us. He's looking over the horizon, waiting for us to make a move towards Him so that He can run to us and throw His arms around us. When we come to our senses and do that, it's an incredible thing. We can do that. We can come to our senses and realize I need to go home, or we can get all huffy and we can point fingers and we can it's not fair that I get treated like this person because look what they did and I didn't do this. And here's what's interesting. The story doesn't really resolve. If you look at it, in verse 31, it says this: the father replied to the son, to the older son, my son, you are always with me. All I have is yours. Isn't it right to join in the celebration and be happy? This is your brother we're talking about. He was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found again. That's how the chapter ends, because it's not really, we don't want to put a bow on it and wrap it up and say, there it is. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to Pharisees everywhere to welcome sinners and misfits and outsiders and people that are different than us, to welcome them to the party and to find the joy that comes with realizing they have found their way home. Let's celebrate. Okay, let's find our way home, and let's get excited when other people do the same. God bless you guys. Giddy up.